Marlo Finch turned 11 in the shadow of cruelty. For 3 years, she had endured the whispers, the shoves, the lunch trays knocked to the floor. The girls at Riverside Middle School made sure she knew she was invisible, until they wanted her to feel pain. Her mother worked double shifts at the diner. Her father was gone, and her birthday invitation sat unopened in 43 trash bins across the cafeteria. But on a grey October afternoon, desperate and trembling outside Harrow's garage on Route 9, Marlo did something no one expected. She walked up to a man named Cade Harrow, a leather-clad biker with silver streaking his beard and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, and she asked him a question that would change everything. "Will you come to my birthday party? No one else will." Cade stopped mid-wrench. The garage went silent, and in that moment, he saw something in her eyes he recognized, the look of someone who'd stopped expecting kindness but was brave enough to ask for it one last time. He made her a promise that would bring 60 riders, their engines roaring like thunder, to a small house on Maple Drive. A promise that would teach an entire town what it meant to stand beside the broken until they learned to stand tall. This is the story of a girl who whispered her pain to a stranger, and the story of a man who remembered what it felt like to be forgotten and refused to let it happen again. The rain came down in cold sheets that October afternoon, turning the asphalt outside Harrow's garage into a mirror of grey sky and diesel stains. Marlo Finch stood at the edge of the lot, her sneakers soaked through, her backpack hanging from one shoulder like dead weight. She'd been standing there for 20 minutes, watching the bikers inside move between motorcycles and toolboxes, their voices low and rough, their laughter foreign and strange. She knew she shouldn't be here. If you've ever stood at the edge of asking for help, knowing rejection was likely but hope was all you had left, then you know why Marlo's hands were shaking. Please like this video and subscribe so more stories like hers can be told. Her 11th birthday was in 6 days. 43 invitations had gone out at school. 43 pastel envelopes with hand-drawn stars. She'd watched every single one get crumpled, tossed, or torn in half. Brinley Casterwell, tall, blonde, the kind of girl who smiled while she destroyed you, had made a show of ripping hers in front of the entire cafeteria. "Why would anyone go to your party, Marlo? You smell like grease, and your mom's a waitress." The laughter still echoed in Marlo's skull. But last week, she'd seen something that stuck. A biker had stopped at the crosswalk near her school. Big guy, scarred hands gripping the handlebars. And when a kid dropped his backpack in the street, the biker had gotten off his bike, picked it up, and handed it back with a nod. No words, just action. Marlo had thought about it every night since. So now she stood outside Harrow's garage, heart hammering, rain dripping from her hair. And when a man with silver threading through his dark beard stepped out to light a cigarette, she moved. "Excuse me." Her voice was barely audible over the rain. Cade Harrow turned. He was tall, taller than she'd expected, with a scar cutting clean through his left eyebrow and tattoos crawling up both forearms. His leather vest read Iron Creed MC in faded letters. He looked at her the way you look at something unexpected, not unkind, just surprised. "You lost, kid." Marlo swallowed hard. "No, I came here on purpose." Cade flicked ash from his cigarette, eyes narrowing. "You're what, 10? 11? 11. Next Saturday. Okay." He waited. Marlo's fingers twisted around the strap of her backpack. The words felt impossible, but she'd come this far. "Will you come to my birthday party?" Silence. Behind Cade, two other bikers had stopped working. One was a woman with braids and sharp cheekbones. The other was a stocky guy covered in engine grease. They were all staring now. Cade crouched down, bringing himself to Marlo's eye level. His voice dropped low. "You asking me because you got no one else to ask?" Marlo's throat closed up. She nodded. "What's your name?" "Marlo. Marlo Finch." "Marlo." Cade said it slow, like he was tasting the weight of it. "Why me?" She blinked hard against the rain, or maybe tears. "Because last week I saw a biker help a kid who dropped his stuff, and I thought maybe bikers are the kind of people who show up when no one else does." Cade's jaw tightened. He looked back at the woman with braids. She gave a single nod. When he turned back to Marlo, his voice was different, quieter. "Where's this party?" 23 Maple Drive, Saturday, 2 o'clock. "Your mom know you're here?" Marlo hesitated. "She's working." Cade stood rolling his shoulders back. He took one last drag from his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. "Marlo Finch, you just asked the Iron Creed to your birthday party." Marlo's heart lurched. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Stop." Cade's voice was firm, but not harsh. "I'm not saying no. I'm saying you just made me a promise to keep, and I keep my promises." He extended a hand. Marlo stared at it, scarred, tattooed, rough, and then she took it. "We'll be there," Cade said. "Count on it." Marlo's eyes went wide. "Really?" The woman with braids stepped forward, wiping grease from her hands with a rag. "What he means is, all of us will be there." "But Marlo's voice cracked. "I don't have much, just cake and—" Cade shook his head. "Kid, you invited us. That's enough. Now get home before your mom worries." Marlo nodded, tears finally breaking free. She turned and ran, her backpack bouncing, her heart doing something it hadn't done in years. It was hoping. Behind her, Cade watched until she disappeared around the corner. Then he turned to the crew. "Call everyone. Tell them we've got a party to attend." The stocky guy grinned. "How many we talking?" Cade's mouth curved into something almost resembling a smile. "Every single rider who remembers what it's like to be that kid." Cade Harrow sat in the backroom office of the garage that night, his phone on speaker, the hum of the space heater filling the silence between words. Outside, rain still hammered the tin roof. Inside, he was making calls. "Yeah, it's me. Listen, got something coming up Saturday, a kid's birthday, 11 years old, no friends. Asked us to show up." On the other end, a voice rumbled low. "Us. Like the crew. Everyone." Cade leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking. "I want every rider who's got a heart left in them. No exceptions." "What's the story?" Cade exhaled slow. "She walked up to me in the rain, shaking like a leaf, and asked if I'd come to her party because no one else would. Looked me dead in the eye and said she thought bikers were the kind of people who show up. Silence, then, 'I'll be there, and I'll bring 5 more. Cade smiled grimly. "Good. Spread the word." He hung up and dialed again, and again. By midnight, 47 riders had confirmed. By morning, it was 63. Cade didn't sleep much that night. Instead, he sat in the dim office, staring at a photo pinned to the corkboard, a picture from 20 years ago. Him, younger, in desert fatigues. Next to him, a kid with a wide grin and no front teeth, his nephew, Ethan. Ethan, who died at 13 because no one had noticed he was being crushed under the weight of his own silence. No one had asked the right questions. No one had shown up. Cade had carried that weight ever since. Now, a girl named Marlo Finch had walked into his life and asked him for the one thing Ethan never got to ask for: someone to care. Cade wasn't about to let her down. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. By noon, the parking lot outside Harrow's garage looked like a rally. Motorcycles lined up in rows. Harleys, Indians, choppers with custom paint jobs. Bikes that had crossed deserts and mountains in decades. The rumble of engines was a low thunder that shook the pavement. 63 riders, all for one kid. Cade stood at the front, arms crossed, watching his crew assemble. There was Sienna Blackwood, the woman with braids, who'd served 2 tours overseas and now ran trauma counseling for vets. Next to her was Rafe Tennant, a former firefighter with burn scars climbing his neck. Then there was Dex Monroe, a mechanic who'd lost his daughter to leukemia 5 years ago and hadn't celebrated a birthday since. They all had their reasons. "Listen up!" Cade's voice cut through the noise. Engines quieted. "This isn't a show. This isn't about us. Today we're showing up for a kid who thought she'd been forgotten. We're proving her wrong. No revving loud enough to scare neighbors. No cursing, no showing off. We're guests. We're her guests. We clear?" 63 voices answered in unison. "Clear." Sienna stepped forward, holding up a duffel bag. We pooled together, got her gifts, books, art supplies, a bike helmet with stars on it, even got her a leather jacket, kid-sized. Cade nodded. "Good, let's roll." They mounted their bikes. The convoy moved through Riverside like a slow river of chrome and leather. People stopped on sidewalks. Kids pointed. A few parents pulled their children back, wary. But the riders kept formation, disciplined and deliberate, heading toward 23 Maple Drive. When they turned onto Marlo's street, the sound was unmistakable. 63 engines, perfectly synchronized, rolling to a stop in front of a small yellow house with peeling paint and a single balloon tied to the mailbox. Inside, Marlo heard it first. She'd been sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the lone birthday cake her mother had scraped together enough money to buy. Chocolate, crooked frosting, 11 candles that hadn't been lit yet. Her mother, Evelyn, stood at the sink washing dishes with tired hands. "Marlo, honey, maybe we should just—" Then the sound hit. Low, deep, unmistakable. Marlo's head snapped toward the window. Evelyn froze, dishwater dripping from her fingers. "Mom? I don't—" Marlo ran to the front door and threw it open, and there they were, 63 bikers lined up along the street, engines idling, leather vests gleaming in the afternoon sun. At the front, Cade Harrow swung off his bike and pulled off his helmet. His eyes found Marlo's. "Happy birthday, kid." Marlo's knees buckled. "And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you." Evelyn Finch stood in the doorway, one hand gripping the frame, her mouth open but no words coming out. She looked at the convoy, at the bikers dismounting, at her daughter who was crying so hard she couldn't stand straight. "Marlo," Evelyn's voice cracked, What is this?" Cade walked forward slowly, hands visible, posture non-threatening. "Ma'am, name's Cade Harrow. Your daughter invited us to her birthday party. We're here as her guests. That okay with you?" Evelyn blinked rapidly, looking between Cade and Marlo. She invited all of you?" "Just me at first." Cade gestured back toward the crew. "But when you're part of something like this, you don't show up alone. We're family, and your daughter asked family to show up. So we did." Tears spilled down Evelyn's cheeks. She covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head in disbelief. Marlo finally found her voice, small and broken. "Mom, they came. They actually came." Evelyn dropped to her knees and pulled Marlo into a hug so tight it hurt. "Oh, baby, oh my God!" Sienna stepped forward next, the duffel bag slung over her shoulder. "Mrs. Finch, we brought gifts. Nothing fancy. Just things we thought Marlo might like, and if it's all right, we'd like to celebrate with her." Evelyn wiped her face with the back of her hand. I only have one cake, and—" Rafe grinned, pulling a cooler off the back of his bike. "We brought food, burgers, hot dogs, soda, enough for everyone." Dex followed, carrying boxes of cupcakes, and backup dessert, just in case. Evelyn laughed through her tears, a sound somewhere between joy and disbelief. I don't even know what to say." "Say yes," Cade said simply. "Let us do this." Evelyn looked at her daughter. Marlo's face was red, streaked with tears, but her eyes were shining in a way Evelyn hadn't seen in years. "Yes." Evelyn nodded. "Yes, please, come in, all of you." The bikers moved with precision. Some set up grills on the front lawn. Others arranged tables and chairs borrowed from neighbors who peeked out curiously. Within 30 minutes, 23 Maple Drive had transformed into something out of a dream. A birthday party for a girl who thought no one cared, surrounded by 63 people who'd proven her wrong. Marlo stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed, clutching a leather jacket with her name embroidered on the back in silver thread. Cade crouched beside her. "You good, kid?" Marlo nodded, unable to speak. "Listen." Cade's voice was low, meant just for her. "You did something brave. You asked for help when you needed it. That takes guts. Don't ever forget that." "Why did you come?" Marlo whispered. "You don't even know me." Cade looked out at the crew. Sienna laughing with Evelyn, Rafe flipping burgers, Dex helping a neighbor's kid climb onto his bike for a photo. "Because I know what it's like to feel invisible. And I know what it means when someone finally sees you." He met her eyes again. "You're not invisible, Marlo. Not anymore." Marlo threw her arms around his neck, and Cade Harrow, scarred, weathered, rough-edged, hugged her back like she was his own. By 3 o'clock, the entire neighborhood had gathered, not inside the party, but watching, standing on porches, peeking through blinds, some curious, some suspicious, some moved. Brinley Castawell's mother, Vanessa, stood 2 houses down, arms crossed, her expression tight. Next to her, Brindley stared with wide eyes at the scene unfolding on Marlo Finch's lawn. "They're bikers, Mom. I can see that. But why are they here, at her party?" Vanessa didn't answer. She didn't know how to explain that sometimes the people who looked the most dangerous were the ones who showed up when it mattered most. Inside the party, Marlo sat at a makeshift table surrounded by gifts she'd never expected. Books, sketch pads, colored pencils, a helmet decorated with constellations. A framed photo of the entire crew standing behind her, arms around each other, smiling, and the jacket. The leather jacket with her name stitched across the back, and a patch that read Honorary Iron Creed. Sienna leaned close. "You're one of us now. That means something." "What does it mean?" Marlo asked. "It means you're not alone, ever. You need us, you call, you're hurting, you tell us, you're scared, we show up. That's the deal." Marlo traced her fingers over the stitching on the jacket. "No one's ever given me anything like this. Then we're glad to be the first. At 4 o'clock, they sang Happy Birthday. Marlo blew out 11 candles, and for the first time in her life, she didn't wish to be someone else. She wished to remember this moment forever. By 5, neighbors started approaching, cautiously at first, then more openly. An older man with a cane limped over to Cade. "You're the one who organized this?" Cade nodded. "We all did." "Why?" "Because she asked." The man's eyes watered. "My grandson, he's got nobody at school either. Autism, kids don't understand." He paused. "You think, would you—" Cade didn't let him finish. "Give me his name. We'll figure something out." By the time the sun set, Cade had 6 more names written in his notebook. 6 more kids who needed someone to show up, and the Iron Creed would answer every single one. Monday morning arrived like a storm. Marlo walked into Riverside Middle School wearing the leather jacket, not because she wanted to show off, because it felt like armor, like proof that she mattered. The hallway went quiet. Brinley and her friends stopped mid-conversation, staring. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is that—" "Did you see the videos? The bikers?" 60 of them showed up to her party. Marlo kept walking, head high, heart hammering. In homeroom, Mrs. Vega, a teacher who'd never once intervened when Marlo was mocked, stood at the front of the class with an expression Marlo couldn't read. "Marlo Finch." Marlo froze. "I saw the photos online. Your birthday party." The class went silent. Mrs. Vega's voice softened. "That was quite something." Marlo didn't know what to say. "I'm glad you had people show up for you." It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. At lunch, Marlo sat alone as usual, but this time, when Brinley walked past with her tray, she didn't knock it over. She didn't say anything. She just kept walking, eyes down. And then, 10 minutes later, a boy named Jackson, quiet, awkward, always reading, sat down across from Marlo. "Hi." Marlo looked up, startled. "Hi. I saw the videos. That was cool. The bikers." "Yeah." Marlo smiled. "They're my friends." Jackson nodded. "I don't really have friends either, but maybe we could sit together sometimes?" Marlo's throat tightened. "Yeah, I'd like that." By the end of the week, 3 more kids had joined their lunch table, and Brinley Castawell no longer ruled the cafeteria unchallenged. If this story moved you, please hit the like button. It helps more people find these stories, and sometimes that's exactly what someone needs to hear. 2 months after Marlo's birthday, winter had settled over Riverside like a grey blanket. Cade stood in the heated garage, grease under his fingernails, the smell of motor oil and coffee thick in the air. The phone rang at 9:47 a.m., its shrill tone cutting through the radio, playing low country music. "Harrow's garage." "Mr. Harrow? This is Principal Marcus Davis from Riverside Middle School." Cade straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. His chest tightened. "Everything okay with Marlo?" "She's fine. Better than fine, actually." While Principal Davis paused, and Cade could hear papers shuffling in the background. "That's why I'm calling. I wanted to thank you, personally." Cade frowned, leaning against the workbench. "For what?" "For what you did. For her. For showing up when 63 people had a choice to make, and every single one chose kindness." Principal Davis's voice wavered slightly. "It changed her, Mr. Harrow. And it's changing this school." "How so?" The principal exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "Bullying reports are down 62% since your visit. 62 in 2 months. Kids are talking about what happened at that party, about how you and your crew showed up for one girl who had no one. It's made them think, made them ask themselves what kind of people they want to be. Cade was quiet, his jaw working. There's something else, Davis continued. Last week, a seventh grader named Jackson Torres came to my office. Quiet kid, always alone. He told me he'd been planning to transfer schools because he couldn't handle the isolation anymore. But then he saw what happened with Marlo. He said it gave him hope that maybe someone would care about him too. Did they? Cade's voice was rough. He's sitting with Marlo and 3 other kids at lunch now, every day. They call themselves the Outsiders. They're building something, Mr. Harrow, a community of kids who refuse to let each other feel invisible. Cade closed his eyes, pinching the bridge of his nose. Behind him, Sienna had stopped working, listening. Principal Davis, that's good to hear. Real good. There's more. The school board approved a new initiative. We're calling it Someone Who Shows Up. It's a mentorship program. We want to connect students who feel isolated with community members who commit to being present in their lives, checking in, showing up at events, being a steady voice when everything else feels chaotic. Cade opened his eyes. What do you need from us? We'd like to invite the Iron Creed to participate, not just as a one-time gesture, but as ongoing partners. Would you consider it? Cade looked at Sienna. She nodded without hesitation. We're in, Cade said. All of us. Principal Davis's relief was audible. Thank you. We'll set up a meeting, coordinate schedules. This could change lives, Mr. Harrow. It already has, Cade said quietly. You just gave it a name. After hanging up, Cade stood there for a long moment, staring at the phone. Sienna walked over, arms crossed. We're doing this, aren't we? Yeah, Cade met her eyes. We are. That night, Cade called an emergency meeting at the clubhouse, a converted barn on the outskirts of town, heated by wood stoves and filled with mismatched furniture salvaged over decades. 23 riders showed up within an hour, their bikes lined up outside like sentinels. Cade stood at the front, hands in his pockets. Got a call from the middle school today. They want us involved long-term. Mentorship. Showing up for kids who need it. It's not a one-time thing, it's a commitment. Rafe spoke first. How much time we talking? Couple hours a week. Maybe more, depending on the kid. School events, check-ins, being present. Dex raised his hand. I'm in. Lost my daughter 5 years ago. If I can stop one kid from feeling what she felt before she got sick. Yeah, I'm in. Sienna nodded. Same. Seen too many kids slip through the cracks. Military street, schools. It's all the same. Someone's got to stand in the gap. One by one, every rider in that room committed. By midnight, they'd drafted a plan. By the end of the week, they'd met with Principal Davis and signed partnership agreements. The Iron Creed wasn't just a motorcycle club anymore. They were a lifeline. Over the next year, the transformation was undeniable. Cade started showing up at Riverside Middle every Tuesday and Thursday, sitting in the back of the cafeteria during lunch, not intervening, just present. Kids noticed. At first, they whispered. Then they approached. Then they sat down. A girl named Astrid Calloway, 12, thin as paper, eyes always downcast, sat across from him one Thursday in March. She didn't say anything for 10 minutes, just picked at her sandwich, her hands shaking slightly. Cade waited. Finally, she spoke. My dad left last year. My mom works nights. I come home to an empty house every day. That's hard. Cade said simply. Kids at school think I'm weird because I don't talk much, but her voice cracked. I just don't have anything to say that matters. Cade leaned forward, elbows on the table. You matter, Astrid. What you feel matters. What you're going through matters, and you don't have to carry it alone. She looked up, tears brimming. How do you know? Because I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same weight, and someone showed up for me when I needed it most. Now I show up for kids like you. That's the deal. Astrid cried quietly for 5 minutes. Cade didn't rush her, didn't tell her to stop, just sat there steady and solid until she was ready to speak again. Can I sit with you next week? She asked. Every week, Cade said. Count on it. By the end of the school year, Astrid wasn't eating alone anymore. She started sitting with Marlo and the outsiders. She smiled sometimes, even laughed. Sienna took on a boy named Cade Lawson, 15, angry, suspended twice for fighting. She met him every Saturday morning at the garage, teaching him how to rebuild engines. Didn't lecture, didn't preach, just worked alongside him, letting the rhythm of tools and metal do the talking. One Saturday, Cade slammed a wrench down. Why do you even care? You don't know me. Sienna didn't flinch. I know enough. I know you're angry because you feel powerless. I know you're fighting because it's the only way you know how to be heard. And I know that anger's going to eat you alive if you don't find another way to channel it. Cade stared at her. What makes you think I want another way? Because you keep showing up here. Sienna handed him the wrench. And people who've given up don't do that. Cade's jaw tightened. Then slowly, he picked up the wrench and went back to work. 6 months later, he enrolled in a trade school, stopped fighting, started building. Rafe mentored a girl named Juno Park. Quiet, artistic, bullied for being different. He took her to art supply stores, bought her sketchbooks, sat with her while she drew. Never told her what to create, just made sure she knew her voice mattered. Dex connected with a boy named Ronan Fisher, 10 years old, recently diagnosed with leukemia. Dex visited him during chemo treatments, bringing comic books and terrible jokes. When Ronan was too weak to talk, Dex just sat there, holding his hand, being present in the silence. By the program's first anniversary, the Iron Creed had mentored 47 kids. Marlo started The Brave Ask, a peer support club that met every Wednesday after school. Kids gathered in a classroom decorated with posters that read, "You are seen, your voice matters, and someone will show up." They talked about feeling invisible, about being afraid to ask for help, about learning to be brave enough to reach out. At 13, Marlo gave a speech at a town hall meeting, standing at a podium in front of 200 people, wearing her leather jacket like armor. I was 11 when I walked up to a stranger and asked for help. I was terrified. I thought he'd say no. But he said yes, and 63 people showed up to prove I wasn't alone. She paused, scanning the crowd. I'm standing here today because someone saw me, and now I want to help others be seen. That's what the Brave Ask is about, teaching kids that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. The applause was thunderous. Cade sat in the back row, arms crossed, eyes wet. He didn't wipe them, just let the pride sit heavy in his chest. Afterward, a woman approached him, mid-40s, elementary school teacher. Her name tag read Mrs. Helena Voss. Mr. Harrow, my son's been asking if he could meet you. He's 15, barely speaks to me anymore, won't go to therapy. But he watched Marlo's speech online 3 times, and yesterday he asked if maybe someone like you might listen. Cade pulled out his notebook, worn now, filled with names and phone numbers and stories. What's his name? Elliot. Elliot Voss. Cade wrote it down. I'll call you tomorrow. We'll set something up. Helena's eyes filled. Thank you. Cade nodded. That's what we do. 5 years later, on a crisp October morning, Marlo Finch stood in the parking lot of Harrow's garage, now 16, taller, her presence commanding in a way that once seemed impossible. She wore her leather jacket, worn soft now, patches sewn across the back and shoulders like badges of honor. Each one represented a moment, a person, a promise kept. Cade leaned against his bike, grey threading heavier through his beard now, lines etched deeper around his eyes, but his gaze still sharp and steady, the smell of gasoline and autumn leaves mixed in the cool air. Around them, over 200 motorcycles filled the lot, riders from across 3 states, all gathered for the 5th annual Someone Who Shows Up rally. You nervous? Cade asked, pulling off his gloves. Marlo nodded, twisting the zipper on her jacket. A little. It's a big crowd. You've spoken to bigger. Not with this many people I care about watching. Cade smiled faintly. That's what makes it matter. Marlo looked out at the sea of bikes and leather vests. Some bore the Iron Creed patch. Others wore colors from different clubs. The Road Wolves, Steel Brothers, Midnight Riders. Solo riders with no affiliation. Veterans, teachers, firefighters, parents, all united by a single mission, showing up for kids who needed them. I got accepted to college, Marlo said quietly. Early admission. Cade's eyebrows lifted. Yeah? Where? University of Vermont, social work program, full scholarship. I want to help kids like me, kids who think no one's listening. Cade's throat tightened. He looked at her for a long moment, pride and something deeper, something like grief and joy mixed together, flickering across his face. Ethan would have liked you. Marlo had heard about Ethan over the years, Cade's nephew, the boy who didn't get the help he needed, the ghost that lived in every promise Cade made, every kid he showed up for. I wish I could have met him, Marlo said softly. Me too. Cade's voice roughened. But I think you're carrying on what he would have wanted, making sure no kid goes unheard. That's the best way to honor someone, keep their hope alive in how you live. Marlo swallowed hard, nodding. Sienna approached, braids tied back, her vest decorated with 5 years' worth of rally pins. We're ready when you are. Marlo took a breath. Ready. They walked together toward the stage, a flatbed trailer draped in banners that read, Someone Who Shows Up, 5 years strong. 200 riders watched in silence, engines quiet, respect thick in the air. Marlo climbed onto the stage, her boots echoing on the metal. The microphone felt heavy in her hand. She looked out at the crowd, faces she knew, faces she didn't, all of them here because they believed in something bigger than themselves. 5 years ago, she began, her voice steady. I stood outside this garage in the rain. I was 11, scared, alone. I'd been bullied for years. 43 kids threw away my birthday invitations. I had no friends, no one to sit with at lunch, no one who saw me. She paused, letting the words settle. So I did something that felt impossible. I walked up to a stranger and asked for help. I asked Mr. Harrow if he'd come to my birthday party because I had no one else. The crowd was silent. That stranger said yes, and 63 people showed up. They didn't just give me a party. They gave me proof that I mattered. They showed me that being seen isn't about being perfect or popular or easy to love. It's about being human, about asking, about letting people in. Marlo's voice grew stronger. Today, we're here because somewhere, right now, there's a kid who feels invisible, who thinks no one cares, who's deciding whether or not it's worth asking for help. And we're here to say, ask, ask us. Ask your teacher, ask your neighbor, ask a biker in a parking lot, because the right people will show up. We promise. The crowd erupted, engines roaring, hands clapping, voices shouting in solidarity. Marlo smiled, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Cade, standing off to the side, arms crossed, eyes wet, his expression saying everything words couldn't. After the speeches, after the food and the music and the stories shared, Cade found Marlo sitting alone on the hood of his truck, staring at the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He climbed up beside her, the metal creaking under his weight. "You did good, kid. So did you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the day fade. "You know what I realized?" Marlo said. "That day I asked you to come to my party, I wasn't just asking for help. I was testing to see if the world was as cruel as I thought it was, and you proved it wasn't." Cade's jaw tightened. "The world's still got plenty of cruel in it." "Yeah, but it's also got people like you, and Sienna, and Rafe, and Dex, and everyone who shows up when it counts." She looked at him. "That's what I want to be, someone who shows up." Cade nodded slowly. "You already are." Marlo smiled. "Then I guess we both kept our promises." Cade bumped her shoulder gently with his. "Guess we did." As the sun dipped below the horizon, 200 riders prepared to leave, engines rumbling to life one by one. But before they rolled out, they formed a circle around Marlo and Cade, a moment of silence for all the kids who'd been helped, and for the ones still waiting to be seen. Then they rode, not as a show of force, but as a reminder that somewhere out there, someone was always ready to show up. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you, please subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the smallest act of showing up changes everything. Until next time, ride safe, and remember, you're never as alone as you think. Someone is always ready to answer when you're brave enough to ask.